the storm clouds have been permanently affixed over the head of Matt Patricia, now the third-year head coach of the Lions. Let's hear from Patricia, given all of the pressure that he's under and giving all of the calls that are out there for his job to be the next one to end as an NFL head coach.
Certainly, I think when I came to Detroit, there was a lot of work to do, and that's what we're trying to do. Talking about this year right now, we're talking about right now, these first 4 games, and obviously today wasn't good enough. I think after 4 games, our team can really take a look at itself and say, okay, hey, how do we need to play the games? What do we got to do? We've got some work to do during the bye week here, I think, which will be good for us to really take a look at how do we need to play going forward. And I think that's probably the most important thing from that standpoint is what do we do going forward, and how do we win?
That claim by Patricia that there was a lot of work to do when I got here, that has opened the door to some sharp criticism of Patricia because in a roundabout way, it throws shade at Jim Caldwell, his predecessor. And here's the reality. When Bob Quinn became the GM, and it's funny his name doesn't come up in any of this. When Bob Quinn became the GM, first order of business was to hire Matt Patricia. But he didn't want to throw Jim Caldwell overboard too quickly. He wanted to give Caldwell a chance. Well, he won the division, or at least made it to the playoffs. Didn't win the division. They haven't won the division in forever, as far as I can remember. But, well, forever's a long time. At some point, they won the division, I think. But they didn't win the division that year, but they got to the playoffs. Then Caldwell got one more year, and he was still competitive, and that's when he got fired. So that's the problem. And this was a point that came up last night when we were discussing the Lions, the set of Football Night in America, and Tony Dungy and I were considering whether to what extent there was a bad culture before Patricia got there. There really wasn't. And so Patricia comes in with all these Bill Belichick-style changes, whether he intends to or not. It's part of your DNA when you're with Belichick for 15 years. You think you're doing it your way. You're doing it the way that you just think is normal because you've been around Bill Belichick. Players are going to resist it. And when it wasn't a 2-14 team, a perennial loser, they haven't won a playoff game in nearly 30 years, but it's not like they're horrible every single season. It makes it harder for the players to accept it, Shireen. And now we're at a point where you've got to have the results. You can't bring the Belichick DNA to town and not have results. And that's the problem for the Detroit Lions. And the question is, will that claim Matt Patricia's job during or after this season?
Yeah, 9-7 in Jim Caldwell's last year. They are now 10-25-1 under Matt Patricia. They cannot hold a lead. Glover Quinn weighed in on Matt Patricia's statement today, saying, "Don't start that mess. This was a 9-7 team when you took over," and it was. And you look at the players that have gone since then: Darius Slay and Quinn and Quandre Diggs, and you go on and on and on. I was fooled into thinking this was a team ready to turn the corner with Matt Stafford coming back, and Stafford's regressed. He does not look good with this team, with this coach, with this coaching staff for whatever reason, whether it's he missed games last year, whatever. To me, he is not the same quarterback he was under Jim Caldwell, and I thought he was ready to really turn the corner, have an MVP-like season in his last season with Caldwell, and now here we go again, and here are the Lions muddling through yet another season. And, the pressure was on he and Quinn both before the year started, but now they've had a change in leadership at the top of the organization, and it's Sheila Ford-Hemp who's now in charge, and whether she sees changes are necessary or not after this season, we'll see. But they were put on notice before this year started.
Or during. That's the thing. Once the first domino falls, the question becomes, will there be others? Will it happen in Detroit? Will it happen with the Jets? The Jets just had an opportunity, mini bye on the back end of a Thursday night game. They didn't make a move on Adam Gase. They've got 6 more games before their bye week. If they go into that bye 0-10, who knows what happens? And this is the bottom line. We can speculate, and we can talk, and we can analyze, and we can guess, and we can hear things that may or may not be accurate. But you never know what's going to happen until that one individual who's got his or her hands on the wheel of the car decides where it's going to be driven. Cal McNair decided that it's time for Bill O'Brien to go. Of all the coaches out there who are in some degree of trouble, he would have been the last one I expected to go. I would have thought Patricia. I would have thought Gase. So it just tells you that you got to be ready for anything. Anytime, any place, anywhere. An owner can decide, I'm going to do something. And Shireen, I don't want to get too far afield here. That's one of the reasons why, and because it can be good and it can be bad. One of the reasons that the Packers are such a unicorn in the NFL, they don't have that one person who can decide at any given moment, you know what, I'm firing the head coach. It doesn't work that way with a publicly traded company that has boards of directors. And yeah, Mark Murphy's in charge, but he just can't say, he's got somebody to answer to. Everybody else who's running a team has someone to answer to except the teams that are owned by individuals. And they can say, that's it, I'm done. So it can happen at any time.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.